So my brothers asked me, he said, what is this photo? It looks very odd. There was a time wherein he was down with very high fever. Because, we used the thermometer to even measure fever. And it was reading about 104. And all of us were like, Swami, you cannot go. 104 means, you'll feel dizzy. He said, okay, if that's the case, close your eyes and pray for me. And in a span of 2 or 3 minutes, the thermometer then read normal temperature. Partishwari Jagat Janani. And my mind raced to that line, Karuna Sadani, Karuna Mahima. And I was like, oh, this line is so apt about what happened to me, And just as the singer came to that line, just as he was starting that line, Swami, who doesn't look left, right, turned straight and looked into my eyes just to say, yes, that is true, and that is what I am. My loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Dear elders, brothers and sisters, it's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to be standing before you on these holy blessed grounds for the first time. And during the day, I was taken through the property here, and I was really amazed at what I saw. For Swami to have willed it more than 50 years back and to be completed in a record 108 days, it's simply an astonishing fact. The photo of Swami sitting on a hillock overlooking a crowd of people that I saw at the Satyadip will probably be etched in my mind forever. In the 70, 80 minutes that I have, this is what I will attempt. I will look forward to sharing my experiences with Swami, mostly from my student days. How in my own very limited way I have tried to understand and experience him, and how we have a key role to play in society and organization. And as always, it's good to go back in time where it all started. I am a native of Darjeeling, as brother just shared. It's the northernmost district in the state of West Bengal. So from the time I can recollect as a child, I could see a photograph or a portrait of Swami hanging in our house. And I know my parents prayed to this person that I saw. I didn't know at that point in time who it was. But, we were kids. We were more interest lied in going around and playing. I was also a lot more interested in music. That's also English music. So it just remained a portrait in my house that my parents paid, and nothing beyond that up till my 10th standard. Though I know that in my 5th or 6th, my father brought the family to Parthi. Those were the days wherein you had sands in front of the mandir, and the Kulantrai, as we see today, did not exist. So it was quite a sight to see Swami walk across the sands. And after Swami had gone through, I was very curiously looking at people trying to take a part of the sand where Swami's feet would have gone through. All this was a lot of big amusement for me as to why are people doing so. Today you can't do that. Yeah. But then that's what it used to be. So what I did during that point was, it was a, we had come in the winters, and it was biting cold in the hills in the winters. For us, it was a welcome vacation coming to Parthi. And all I did probably was take a lot of pictures of what I saw, the colleges, the schools, because the architecture was so different from what we had seen before, the mandir. That was all that is etched in my memory at this point in time. And went back, never knew that destiny in some day would have a very different path for me. For me, I thought I'll go back, and that's where the hills is where I would probably complete my studies, find a job, and earn a living. In the late 1980s, there was an agitation in the hills for a separate state, and it turned very violent, and we could not study. Our colleges were shut for 2 to 3 months in a row, and my father was really worried about what future would bring for me. He was very concerned, and he happened to meet up with mother of my friend in the marketplace, and they started talking about their children. And she told him that, I was myself too worried about what would happen to our children in the hills because of this political instability. So I found a way. I have admitted my son to Swami's school. So my father was really intrigued. So please tell me, because I'm equally concerned. She said there is one school in Kerala, and that's where I've admitted him. And my father was really overjoyed. He came back home and shared this news with me, but I just saw red light, when he said this. I said, no way, I'm not stepping out of this place. I love this place. I've got my friends, my family, and I'm not going to go 3,000 kilometers away to a land that I absolutely don't know. But somehow he convinced me that I should at least make a trip to see this school, and off we went in the summers to Kerala. And to come from this cold place, travel 2,500 kilometers. The school is located on a hillock overlooking the Arabian Sea, and it's really hot. It's very humid. You walk 10 steps and your shirt is completely wet. So I was really, really upset with what I saw. The food I did not understand. So as I stepped out of the gate, I told my father that you can do whatever you want with me, but I'll never step foot into this place again. I want to go home. But we came home. My father gave me a week to think through, and I thought rationally that this was the only way out. If I stayed back, I would not be very sure of my future. And off I went, and that was my initiation to the Sai fraternity and the Sai organization, or the Sai way of life. That's when I came to know about, getting up at 5 o'clock for Suprabhatam, completely something that was so new to me, or sitting for Bhajans, or rather, after Bhajan, sitting for even meditation, completely new for me. But I was an avid fan of music, so music in any form appealed to me. Slowly, I understood that, this is also one way of expressing yourself, bhajans, and that's how I slowly got into understanding, what Swami stands for, what the Swami's institution stand for, and what as students we have to gain. I still did not have a very clear understanding of what Sathya Sai Baba stands for. I was studying in his school. I was going through the rigors of what we are supposed to do as students, but never really had clarity as to what does he stand for. Is he really the God that people speak of? Is he a guru? What is he? And as luck would have it, I think Swami knows that, he needs to remove these obstacles. He needs to bring clarity to people where there are so many doubts. The first thing was we had a vacation coming up, and everyone said we should go to Parthi during this vacation. I remember it was somewhere around June, July. Mostly it was probably Guru Purnima that had come up, and we all landed there. Not as students, but mostly as devotees. We were sitting in the devotees' lines. And then we heard this news that Swami had been injured, that he had fallen in his bathroom. He had fractured his hip, and he was immobile. He was advised rest by the doctors because it was quite a dangerous fracture that he had suffered. And, generally during festivals, you see a lot of devotees turn up at Puttaparthi because they know that Swami will give a discourse, Swami will speak to them, and they come with a lot of hope. And we were thinking, what's going to happen? Will he come? Will he speak? And then on the day of the festival, Swami came, and Swami stood for an hour and gave a lovely discourse. And we were just wondering that, if someone has had a hip fracture, how can he stand for an hour? And at the end of the discourse, this is what Swami said. He said, you all must be wondering, why am I standing here for an hour talking to you when you all know that doctors have advised me complete rest for a month. I can't even move out of bed. But he said, I have thousands of devotees who've come for me. So all I did was, I just focused my mind on the devotees and their needs and not on the pain that I'm suffering. And that's how I'm able to stand for an hour. So that was my first initiation. Mind control makes so much of a difference. He was just trying to, goad me into understanding what he was. We came back impressed with what we saw. And then there was another vacation coming up in November, December, and we've heard Swami say that miracles are my visiting cards. So I guess Swami had one more card up his sleeve, and so we all landed there. And I was very new to letters that we give to Swami. Never given in my life. We sat amongst the devotees. There was this lottery system, and as luck would have it, all of us students from the Sathya Sai Vidyapit, we happened to get the first line in the darshan line. Then I see my friends opening up sheets of paper and start writing down, and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing? What is happening here?" They said, "Hey, we are in the first row. Every chance that Swami will walk by, and we should give him a letter. So what are you going to write? Whatever you want to write." I said, "Okay, lend me a pen and paper. I should also write something, but I'm struggling to write. What do I write? I have nothing to write. I have nothing to ask, really." And then I recollect a conversation I have with my father about a week, 10 days back, wherein he had said that your brother is not keeping well, so I'll be taking him to Calcutta for a checkup. I did not take it seriously because Darjeeling is a small town, and many times medical facilities are not there, and you generally have to go to the plains, which is Siliguri or Calcutta, to show your people. So I thought it's just one of those maybe routine checkups. So that was the only thing that came to my mind. So I wrote, "Swami, my brother is not keeping well, and please look after him," or something like that. I don't really remember exact wordings, but that's the context of what I wrote. And I also stood in line, and Swami came by, and generally he sort of plucks the letters from people's hands. But when it came to me, he literally sort of squeezed the letter from my hand, almost crushing my thumb. For me, it was a very amusing thing, and I told my friends also, "Hey, what did you do? It almost crushed my thumb. It was just about pulling a letter, but he went beyond that." Little realizing what he had actually done. After about 4 months, our term was ending, and I went home. And that's when I came to know the extent of my brother's illness. My brother had fallen so ill that he'd sort of stopped seeing, and he was not able to speak. He was not able to move. He would literally sort of crawl on the floor. He could only hear voices and recognize who was speaking to him. And no doctors were able to cure him. So my father said, "Let me make a last attempt to sort of take him to Calcutta and see if there's anything that can be done about it." My mother says that, when she was sending them off from the home, she probably never expected him to return. He was in that situation when they left off. And he was in Calcutta, and around that time, I seem to have been giving this letter to Swami. And my father says that they went to Calcutta, they did a lot of tests. They really could not diagnose what was the problem with my brother, and he was not really improving. And just about a week after this diagnosis and all of that, when they were just struggling to, out of the blue, my brother started improving. And then about a week, 2 weeks, he walked home. So when I heard that, I was able to make the connection between what was happening in Puttaparthi when I was giving the letter and the way he crushed my thumb and sort of squeezed the letter out of me versus what was happening with my brother in Calcutta. So this, as a miracle is my visiting card, convinced me that this is not pure coincidence. This is a big thing at play here, and I better understand and get more involved. So 2 years in Sri Sailam, good enough time for me to get acquainted with Swami and the organization. So the most logical thing for us was, okay, where do we do our graduation? Let's apply to Puttaparthi, right? So all of us applied, and as luck would have it, one more test. We were all coming down to Puttaparthi to write our exams, and it was a train journey. And during that period, Orissa was hit with a massive cyclone, so bad that the train lines were uprooted. No roads were there. So our train got terminated at Visakhapatnam, and we were told the train cannot go any further from here because there are no lines on which the train can move. So we were all holed up in a hotel. Didn't know what to do because the waters also were not subsiding. Even the roads were not motorable at that point in time. So after a few days, when things became better, we took a cab, went to Hyderabad, got a bus, and reached Parthi about 3 days late. All the examinations had been done, and everything was closed. So we went and we sort of requested at the administrative block saying, this is a natural calamity. None of us could have foreseen it. So our parents requested that you should give an exception to our children. And they agreed. They said, okay, you got to write the exam today. I think we were the only people in the history of the university that wrote exam in administrative block in one of the rooms, We traveled the whole night in a bus where the driver was sleeping. So we had to sit in the front seat and keep on, tapping him, telling him something so that he would not put the bus in out of the road. And so we had ourselves not slept. And because of the cyclone, we had not studied also because we were all in a anxiety as to whether we will reach on time. So I really do not know what I wrote. Frankly, I simply just filled in, wrote the pages and submitted. And lo and behold, I got a selection. And I was admitted to the Brindavan campus for my BSc Chemistry Honours degree. So, I think it's nothing that I did. I think it was destined that I will join the Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning for a purpose that Swami understands. And then I went off to join, and my father very, very happy that he was able to uproot me from Darjeeling and find his son in an institution that he so much wanted his son to be. And just around the time that I had joined, the summer course on Indian spirituality had restarted. Apparently in the 70s, Swami had this course and it had stopped. And for the years that I joined, it started. So 90 to 93, there was 3 years of summer course on spirituality. And it was a completely different experience for a youngster like me getting into this organization and trying to understand. We used to have day-long discussions on spirituality at the auditorium. Eminent speakers coming and speaking. In the evening, we had a lot of eminent artists performing. And by the way, Bhimsen Joshi that we heard was one of them. And again, I was hearing a classical singer, or rather seeing a classical singer for the first time in my life. So the first 20 minutes of Bhimsen Joshi's performance, I didn't even understand. The amount of movement of his body, almost like, he's sort of plucking the notes or moving the notes. It was so difficult for me to understand him. I was practically laughing for the first 10 minutes. But then later on, you start understanding his music and the amount of devotion that he carries. And the way Swami was sitting on stage and appreciating that music made us realize how great a singer he is. Maybe there is a photograph. Yeah, so this is the summer course. And we as students would also get an opportunity to present. And I remember when I was a part of the music group and we were presenting, when we went down to give flowers to Swami to start the program, the guest at that point in time was Atal Bihari Vajpayee, sitting beside Swami. And I remember that Sonam sir and me, we were like, he was ahead of me and I was behind him. And as both of us went to give the flowers, Swami takes pride sometimes in his students. We don't deserve it, but he takes a lot of pride. And he sort of markets us as well, right? So he turned to Atal Bihari Vajpayee and said, do you know where these two people are from? So he also said, no, I don't know. He said, this guy is from Sikkim and that guy is from Darjeeling. Almost to say that, people from far and wide come here. I remember this episode very clearly. Maybe the next, yeah. So these are all the stalwarts who were there at that point in time. Many faces that you would recognize. You would see Arunesh Puneta, who's probably come here and spoken. You can see Ravi Kumar. You can see Sonam. You can also see Kabir, who was a fabulous singer at that point in time. And I do not know why I am in this photograph, but I am there. So these were all the stalwarts that were there. So Brindavan was... I was remarking to my brothers that it was an amazing place to be in. Great culture, great regime, and also it was not busy like Parthi, because Swami would come some times of the year, and the other times you had time to yourself, to your development, sports or otherwise. And when Swami came, it would be a very, very different environment. there was this external audience with the devotees where Swami would go around, bhajans and darshan, but there was also these sessions inside Trai, which was so personal with us and maybe just some of the VIPs around. Swami would spend hours just chatting, sometimes giving a discourse, sometimes listening to bhajans, sometimes asking someone to speak. Those private sessions were gems, and I really miss them even today. So I, being a musician myself, initially I joined the group as a guitarist, and I was very fearful of Swami. For some reason, I found his eyes so piercing that the very first day I joined Vrindavan, we were called inside Trai, and we were told that Swami is distributing something for the course that is starting tomorrow. So all of you have to line up in the lawns. And Mr. Nanjundaya, who was the controller then, he and Swami came along, and I think it was a notebook and a pen that Swami was distributing to all the students. The point was that, it was a course for about 7 days, and we were supposed to jot down a lot of spiritual discussion that was happening, literally not understanding anything, but jotting it down, because at the end of the 7 day, you had a test coming up, and you had to pass that test, So Swami came, I was right at the end of the line. Swami came giving this notebook, and then since I was probably at the end, he looked at me and he said, "Where have you come from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Darjeeling." And I think that's the only answer you can give. I said, "Okay." And then he moved away. But I was very fearful, his eyes, I felt it could see through me, and some of maybe the dark secrets that I have. I was very fearful. I tried my best to sort of stay away from him as much as possible. So, Guru Purnima came up. I narrated this incident to my brothers. Guru Purnima came up and we were called to Parthi. And I was told by a lot of people that since you are a part of the music group, you'll be called for interviews by Swami. Swami will take keen interest on the festival programs. He would want to know what songs are being performed. So we came, Ravi Kumar, they were the leaders at that point in time. So they got up in the portico and said, "Swami, we want to discuss about the program we have for you for Guru Purnima." Swami said, "Yeah, why don't you go inside the interview room?" So experts, people just ran into the interview. I did not know why they were running inside the interview room. And I was very fearful. And I saw people were all huddled around the chair inside the room. Swami had not yet come in. I had a different mindset. I'll say, I'll sit by the door furthest, so he does not see me, so that he doesn't tell me anything, those dark secrets will not come out. So I was sitting by the door, all the others were by the chair. After a long time, Swami came in, and then he walked across, he went to his chair, and then I understood why people were by the chair, and they were massaging his leg. I said, "Oh, okay, this is what happens." And then my heart was beating fast that, okay, you should not look at me and you should not say something, that will embarrass me at this point in time. Then he suddenly looked around and he got up and he went to the other room. My palpitation is even increasing now. After a long wait, I want this whole thing to end. I want to go out, After a while, he comes out with a glass jar, and that jar has got cookies in it. And then he opens the jar and then starts giving a cookie to each of the musicians there, including me. Goes back to his seat and he says, "Have your cookie." I'm like, "Okay, is that it? Is there anything beyond this?" So I think that's Swami's way of telling me that, you don't have to fear me. You have to start loving me. I'm not that fearful person that you are. I'm the most loving person that you can find. And then from playing guitars, I graduated to singing bhajans in the bhajan hall in the hostel. I had not yet got permission from Swami to sing a bhajan. So we had a music teacher who would sort of give us approvals to sort of sing these bhajans in the bhajan hall. So one day someone said, "Swami is coming. You've been singing bhajans for about a month here. Why don't you ask Swami for an approval to sing bhajans?" I said, "Okay." I was so new, I didn't know the processes. So, okay, so that's possible? Yeah. I go to this teacher and said, "Can I ask Swami for permission to sing bhajans in his presence?" And he says, yeah, why not? You do that. So Swami comes, and the very next day I get up, because Swami seems to be passing by in Atrai. I get up and said, Swami, can I sing bhajan in your presence? Swami looks at me and says, yeah, why not? Please sing. It was so easy, you know. When I hear tales of what people have to wait for, this was as easy as that. And I went back to my teacher and I said, Swami has agreed. So he said, sure, please prepare a bhajan. So I thought, what better than a Ganesh bhajan, you know, to sing. And then, we had all the best singers at that point sitting in that room in Trai, and I had to sing the first bhajan, and my heart was racing, and there was Swami just 2 feet away from me. Everyone was waiting for me to sing. And maybe if you can give me one black, it was this bhajan that I sang. He Gauri Nandana Gajanana Girijanandana Niranjana Parvati Nandana Shubhanana Pahi Prabho Mam Pahi Prasanna Pahi Prabho Mam Pahi Prasanna. I'm singing with a lot of confidence, but then I was so jittery, I must have gone out of scale, out of Shruti. I know I sang so bad. And I was so worried what would happen after the bhajans ended. And after the bhajans ended, and everyone was sort of about to disperse and go, Swami says, Narsimurti calls the warden, he said, warden, come here. And in front of everyone, he's like, this boy, he sang so beautifully. I'm like, really? What do you mean? He sang so well. And then, personally to me, he gave me a message. He looked at me and he said, practice karte rehna. Which was the real message, not the earlier one. Because I realized that if at that point in time Swami had said, Arre kya gaya, kitna apaswaram tha, my singing career was over. But I think he is so magnanimous. He gave a different feedback to the public in general, and to me he said, you better practice. This is not good enough, I need more from you. And so that started my singing career. And I want to also narrate an incident, I think many of us musicians here, sometimes, we become very smart. We think we know a lot about music, and we try to analyze a little too much. Swami in Trai one day was giving a discourse, and like at the end of the discourse, he generally sings a bhajan. And that day, and I was like sitting 3 feet from him, and he sang Hari Bhajanavina. He started Hari Bhajanavina. And as is with many of us singers, we are so worried about scale, Shruti and all of that, Tal and all of that. I felt that he started Hari Bhajanavina at a very high scale. I felt. And my mind is racing and saying, oh, by the time you come to the high line, you are going to struggle. Maybe you will even crack, I'm thinking all those wicked things in my head. And Swami is singing, and just as he comes to that line, which is the highest line, the line below that, he's singing, he looks at me straight into my eyes and just smiles, and he sings the high line pitch perfect, to my embarrassment, pitch perfect. And then after bhajans, without really telling me, he tells overall to the warden, I'm getting a feeling that my boys don't trust me any longer, So for those of us singers who sometimes we become very smart, that's again a message from Swami. I was in the bioscience stream, and we had a super specialty hospital that had come up, and Swami was sort of looking to sponsor students who could go and do their medical and come back as doctors, sort of dedicate their time to the hospital. Which also means that, you can't probably go out, you will not have so much of time for your family, you will be wedded to the hospital, you'll probably have to stay years with the hospital and things like that. So he would have told warden that, I want to know if students have any problems with this, when I sponsor them. So we were all lined up in the lawns of the Trai, and Swami walked up. Now this is probably the context of what Swami's question was, but this context was not really known to us. And Swami saw me and recognized me, and the only thing he asked me was, "Maa baap kya bolta hai?" As in, what will your parents say if you dedicate your life to me and don't go home and all of that? But I did not understand the context. So literally, "Maa baap kya bolta hai?" I just told him, "My maa baap to Nepali bolta hai," So, for a moment, I think even he was stunned with the answer that I gave him, But as destiny would have it, I never went to do my medical. I'm sure he knew before that, but it was a very, very funny incident, and I became a butt of joke for the whole college for about a month for what I said. So, in the year 1992, by February, Puttaparthi becomes very hot. So, around first week of March, generally, Swami comes to Vrindavan, stays for a month in Vrindavan, and then in April he goes to Kodai Kanal. Stays about a month in Kodai Kanal and then comes back again to Vrindavan. So 92 he came in the first week to March, and in the evening, Swami is also very, very clever in the way he puts across words and gets responses out of us. So he interacted with boys and all, and towards the end he says, "Okay, boys, in a month from now your exams will end. You've spent a long time now here. Your parents must be excitedly looking for you to be back. So you have to go home, and you will be train tickets. Trains are very difficult to get. You have to do train tickets in advance, book in advance, so that you don't struggle when you really have to go home." Okay, and all of that. So how many of you have booked your tickets? And up went our fingers, hands. We have booked. We had already done our tickets back home. In the evening, we got a message that warden has called you to his office. We were really fearful of what's going to happen. So three of us singers, we were called. And for the next 5 minutes, we were really bitten black and blue by the warden saying, "Who told you to do the tickets? Who gave you permission? Right? You are only interested in going home. Swami has said that, your compass is always home. It is never him," all of that. And he says, Swami, in fact, wanted to take you guys to Kodai Kanal. But now you have no interest. You have done your tickets. You are least bothered spending time with Swami. So he says, now you go and cancel all the tickets. And tomorrow you please sit in the front and ask Swami for forgiveness. And that was the start of our 20-day ordeal of being humiliated in Vrindavan in front of everyone. For 20 days, Swami didn't come to us. For 20 days, he didn't talk to us. For 20 days, wherever we sat, he would take a byline and go. So much so that students stopped sitting with us because they knew that if we sit with these three people, Swami will never come to us. So we became literal outcasts, and he did not take us to Trai. It was a very strong message that he wanted to pass on to us, that we have to yearn for an event, for a trip of this nature. Come next year, we became smart. So we did not book our tickets. So when the same question came, we were like, "No, Swami, we want to be with you. We have not done your tickets, no." And we did get an opportunity. I think by then, even in our hearts, there was a lot of yearning to be with Swami, to spend that 1 month. It is a very coveted period of 1 month, being closeted in a place with Swami, being with him throughout the day, listening to him. So it's a great. Maybe we were not mature enough in 92 to understand the significance. But a year later, I think we understood what it was to spend time. So we were, in heart and mind, we were like, "We want to be with you." And we were selected to go with him. And the day came, we were in a bus, Swami in his car, and absolutely gracious host that Swami is. He would stop the car, send in apples. After 1 hour, he would stop the car, send in some sweets. After a while, he would jump into the bus. Maybe there is a photograph. That's us, trying to trample one over another on that bus, trying to get a photo of Swami, with Swami. So then we had lunch at a devotee's place somewhere in Salem. And then he said that, I have to go ahead and make arrangements because you are coming. So Swami moves ahead. Look at how gracious he is. He goes ahead in advance and ensures that the house or the bungalow is ready to welcome us. And as we come, he is there, ready to welcome us. He says, tea and snacks are served for you. Everything is ready. Come. I will show you the place. Takes us around, shows us the place, says, this is where we will have. He shows us the dining hall. So then takes us upstairs and saying, this is where you will stay, sleep. Shows everything. That's how gracious he was. And that's how we started staying there for about a month. And we also got a chance to look at Swami very, very closely, because we were in one room. In one end, there is his table where he eats. And just after that, our tables start. Swami used to finish his breakfast or any meal in like 2 or 3 minutes. Then he would supervise all our tables and load us with food, I think he said that he consumes about just 300 calories, but does the work for about 3,000 calories. And I think we're just the opposite, So, and I got the opportunity to sleep just outside his door. So what you see is the door is Swami's room. And just outside the door is where I decided that I'm going to sleep here for about a month. And I would be the first person to see Swami when he would come in or when he would retire. And I think he's always teaching us as to how we should conduct ourselves. There was a time wherein he was down with very high fever. Because, we used the thermometer to even measure fever. And it was reading about 104. And all of us were like, Swami, you cannot go. 104 means, you'll feel dizzy. You'll not be able to walk. You should take rest. But Swami was like, you think that the thousands of people just outside this bungalow know that I'm unwell? They've come, some of them have just come for one day from a far off place just to see that one darshan, one smile of mine. And my not going will create so much of discomfort to so many people. So I will have to go. So that's the way he conducted himself. Till one fine day we decided that, we would literally prevent him from going. He was running a very high temperature that day. And we said, no, Swami, we will prevent you. We all formed a circle around him saying, we will not allow you to go for darshan. And then he said, okay, if that's the case, close your eyes and pray for me. So we were a little concerned about whom do we pray, For whom do we pray, whom to pray, all those grammatical issues we had. Nevertheless, we closed our eyes, and I think in my mind, I told that Swami, okay, please transfer that fever to me, you should be okay, some things like that. Everyone thought along those lines. Maybe about 2 minutes. Then he said, get the thermometer. And by the time, you could see that, the color of his skin was changing. It was very black earlier, it was changing, the blood was coming into his face. The eyes that were bloodshot had changed its color. And in a span of 2 or 3 minutes, the thermometer then read normal temperature. So, mastery over body. He just exhibited that in a matter of 5 minutes, that one could go from 104 to normal just because we prayed. I'm sure that was not the reason. But he wanted to show it to us that, that's the mastery that he had over his own body. Though there is an after story to that he had actually taken over someone else's problem. A devotee of him, a long-standing devotee of his, who was not really doing well, was undergoing an operation, and he had to take out upon himself to save the devotee. That is what we came to know later. But for at that point in time, it was like someone who had so much of mastery over his body. So my brothers asked me, he said, what is this photo? It looks a very odd photo, not properly clicked because the occasion was such. So one of these days, on the ground floor, there was a sofa, and all of us would sit around the sofa, and then Swami would generally speak about a lot of things. So one day he was talking about how a God and devotee's relationship can be, and how if a devotee wants, God can stoop to any level. It can go any distance, can bear any pain or suffering for the sake of the devotee. So he recounted that on the battlefield of Mahabharata, this is what Swami said. He said the chariots that Arjuna was on and Krishna was the charioteer, right? So, you had 100,000 people probably in that battlefield. You had elephants, you had horses, you had infantrymen, and you had metals. There was so much of noise in that battlefield. I'm sure no one could communicate, can you go left, can you go right, can you stop? You could not communicate. So he said that the the platform of Arjuna, where Arjuna was standing, that platform was coming to Krishna's forehead, to this level. And that's where Arjuna was seated, and this is where Krishna was. Now he had to tell Krishna, you have to go left, right, go ahead, or stop. So Arjuna in his shoes had pointed areas on two parts of his shoes, which was right at Krishna's temples here. So his shoes were here. And that's what Arjuna would do to poke Krishna to say you go left or you go right or you stop. And that's how he wanted to first do it with his legs, but his lungi probably came in the way. So he said, I'll show you with my hands. And that's how he's showing this is what happened on the battlefield of Mahabharata. I thought that's an interesting photograph to share. Again, we have a music contingent here, so maybe some time on music and musicians. Swami is a master musician, right? He's always guiding us, teaching us, reprimanding us. And during festivals and music programs, we really got to understand the musician in Swami. And because Swami is so attached to music, the music group, by default, gets a lot of opportunity. They get to perform in front of Swami, they get those interviews, Swami is talking to them all the time. So there's also a spotlight on them as this, who are these people who are getting so many opportunities? Do they even deserve it? Are they worth it? And I think that's where Swami wanted students to be very, very careful that if you're getting so much of opportunities, you need to also be the right student. You need to present yourself in the proper manner so that people do not misunderstand. And the ego is the big thing that Swami always dwelt on. So his point was that as a singer, as a musician, the moment ego came into me, then it would automatically reflect in the way I started singing. I would probably go out of scale. I would probably not bring that bhav. So half the time he would say, this is apaswaram. I'm not happy. And there are many times wherein he stopped music programs midway. There are times when he stopped bhajans midway because he felt that, we had a bloated sense of ego that, oh, it's me. It's me. And moreover, when people come and congratulate you after bhajans, oh, kya gaya aapne. So more and more, it used to be that way. And I maintained a diary and I recorded most of the experiences that I had with Swami. And I was going through this diary and I found that 50% in the places is where Swami has rebuked people or students, particularly on things like not having an ego. He used to say, and I'll quote him, he used to say, he used to say, less noise and more voice. That was the interplay that Swami used to do. I remember that there was a very famous singer who came to Puttaparthi and he wanted an audience with Swami. He wanted to perform in front of Swami. But he was a famous bhajan singer, but I think his overall behavior in the outside probably did not benefit the type of stature that he had or the bhajan singing that he was doing. Swami was very unhappy with him. So about a week passed by, Swami did not even speak to him. And finally, Swami relented and said, okay, why don't you perform? So it was in Shanti Vedika that this singer was performing. We were all seated in the D below with Swami and he was performing on stage. And there was a point in where, he was singing this bhajan and the lines of the bhajan was Mere man mein Ram and Mere tan mein Ram. And Swami just looked at us and said, Na man mein Ram hai, na tan mein Ram. He was so brutal about people not really following Swami's path and straying that he could be so brutal, right? I had the privilege of singing inside the mandir for about 5 years. Then it was in the mandir, so it was a very different experience. In that small area, you're sitting in that first row and you are looking up to Swami. He is just about 2 feet away from you. And sometimes you're singing a bhajan and he's engrossed in that bhajan and he's really into that bhajan, and the joy that we would get that, oh, I'm able to bring that feeling to Swami would be amazing, And there were some times wherein then he would look down on you and say, you're singing so terribly. It would be such an embarrassing thing in front of the elite galaxy of singers that we had. And, look at the atmosphere. You were among the best of people then. I was at a time wherein Swami would ask a brother to sing Sri Raghavam along with the alap, along with the flute. Then he would ask another brother to sing the Kawali, Mohabbat Ki Kami. Another brother would come with a fresh composition and then present it to Swami. And those were the days wherein, you had stalwart singing. And just being there and absorbing that atmosphere itself was an amazing experience. On the ego part, it's not that I'm just preaching it. I'm also a recipient of that, what happened. Me and a fellow singer of mine, we returned back from our vacation. And as usual, we went and sat with the Bhajan group and we gave our Bhajans. And the Bhajans were about to start in Kalyan Mandap at Vrindavan. And then just about 2 or 3 minutes before the Bhajan is to start, the warden comes in and looks at me and the other singer and says, you two cannot sing. Swami has asked me to communicate that you cannot sing bhajans. And after bhajan, you please come and meet me in my room. So really, that was a big blow to us, and we go and say, Swami is very unhappy with both of you. He says, you have become very indisciplined, so you will not be singing bhajans. And I pushed it a little bit and I said, sir, can you tell us at least what did we do wrong? He looks at us and he says, you did not cut your hair. And unfortunately, I have a hair that stands up even if I cut. The other brother actually has hair that sits on his head. So he looked at me and said, you have not cut your hair. I said, sir, I've cut. This is all that is there. If I cut beyond this, there's nothing left, But no, I don't listen to you boys. You will not sing henceforth. So for 2 weeks, we could not sing. And I'll tell you, that was probably the worst phase of my 5 years in Parthi, when you cannot sing for the Lord, when you cannot look Him in the eye, when everyone starts looking at you as in you are the 2 worst creatures on the planet, the 2 worst fellows, and no one would want to talk with us, walk with us. So it was getting to us as well. We were also really feeling bad about it. So till one fine day we decided that we need to do something about it. And Swami was also avoiding us. So if you've seen Trai, there is this drawbridge. There is Swami's interview room. Many times he comes through the drawbridge. So we hid behind one of those doors. And we thought we'll ambush Swami this time and maybe ask for forgiveness. And Swami came halfway on the drawbridge and he realized that there are 2 people hiding behind the door. He sort of turned around to go and come from the front. We said, oh my God, even this plan is going to fail. But something happened. He again turned around and came. And then both of us fell at his feet and asked for forgiveness. And all he had to say was, you are my students. And you have to behave as my students. You have to live up to the ideals that I have propounded. The discipline being foremost of that. So that's how Swami has looked at students, the opportunities that students get, particularly singers, musicians, and how when we misuse the treatment that we've got. In 1993, there was an incident that happened in the mandir, and Swami sort of withdrew from the students, right? And in fact, Swami left Parthi and went to Vrindavan and didn't really come back for a long time. So, we were really, really troubled. There was so much of yearning in our heart that, Swami should come, Swami should speak to us. Because, Parthi without Swami speaking to us is meaningless. It has no value, right? The physical presence of Swami mattered so much to us those days. So it was during that time to sort of ensure that Swami relents, Swami melts, and Swami speaks to us. The famous Humko Tumse Pyar Kitna was composed. And when we presented it to Swami, I think, it was presented with so much of bhava and emotion that Swami finally relented. And then, the bond that was there became even more stronger with Swami. And it was again during that time, the floodgates for group songs opened up. There were a lot of group songs that was created, so much so that Swami would stop bhajans midway and say, stop the bhajans, start the group songs. I want to listen to group songs and not bhajans inside the mandir. That's what he would do. So, O Saima or Hum Tere Sai, these were all composed during that period. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a team that composed it, and I thought I'll probably just sing a few lines. O Saima, O Saima, O Saima, O Saima, हम बच्चों की प्यारी माँ, हम बच्चों की प्यारी माँ, प्यारी माँ, साई माँ, प्यारी माँ, साई माँ, ओ साई माँ, ओ साई माँ, तेरे बिन हमें कोई न भाए, हर पल माँ हम तुझको चाहे, तेरे बिन हमें कोई न भाए, हर पल माँ हम तुझको चाहे, संकट की जब बेला आए, साई साई दिल ये पुकारे, हो साई माँ, ओ साई माँ. Moving on, in 1994, my parents had come to Parthi, and I sort of requested Swami that, he should give an interview to my parents, and he graciously agreed. And my father and mother and me, he gave us an interview. And then, he took us for a personal interview, and he remarked to my parents that ये लड़का पढ़ता नहीं है, ये बहुत टाइम बर्बाद करता है, ये करता है, वो करता है, म्यूजिक में करता है, लेकिन पढ़ता नहीं है. And then he said, you got to study. He's spending a lot of times with friends, but he blessed me, and he said, I'm blessing you. I'll ensure that you do well. Unfortunately, a week later, my semester results came, and it turned up that I had not written 3 of my papers because I had fallen ill. I was down with viral, and I could not go to write 3 exams. As the rule would have it, if you have not written exams, then you cannot continue further. You have to step back. You will go back a semester, write those 3 exams, and then join back, which means losing about 6 months. So, for me, I did not understand what that meant. So, okay, how can I discontinue college? What do I do? I have to go home now. What do I go home, and how do I explain to people? What happens to my parents? How do they explain to folks in the locality as to why has this boy come home? A lot of thoughts in my mind. I said, what do I do about it now? How can I continue? And just around this time, this was around October, November, and I have been a part of the dramas, So this was one of the dramas that I was a part of. The person with this sage-like dadi, that is me. This was a drama for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I was playing the guru that trains the younger Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who generally then becomes the elder one. The elder one was played by Ravi Kumar. It was a very nice play. So similarly, there was another play that I was a part of. You can see me kneeling there in front of Swami. So at the same time, this drama was happening, and I had a role to play, and I was being now told that you cannot continue in the college because you've not really completed those 3 papers, so you'll have to drop out of college. And then the warden said, if you drop out of college, you have to drop out of the hostel as well. So you have to pack your bags and go home. And I'm like, I'm preparing for a drama, which Swami is overseeing. And on one hand, the authorities are telling me you got to leave and go. I was in a real fix. So one of these days, and I was trying to sort of get to Swami, explain to Swami that I have a problem. Swami, help me, get through this. Let me continue. This break is going to be a challenge for all of us. So we were having this program practice in Purnachandra. No one else but just us, actors, and a few guests like Anil Kumar and others. So it was my turn to go on stage and enact my part. And as I went on stage and enacted the part, I had to sing. I was playing a fisherman's role, and I had to actually sing a song. And that was a very lively song, full of laughter, fun. So I had to really act that I was so happy in that act. And Swami was sitting behind, and he remarked to Anil Kumar that, look at this boy. He's smiling and dancing and singing, but in his head he's crying. So after I finished my part, I came down the steps, and then he called me and he said, come here. What's your problem? So by then, it had become so emotional for me to explain to Swami that, Swami, let me continue. I don't want to go home. I don't want to have this break. I love being here, studying here. But it was so emotional that I could not even explain to him, but I was carrying a letter. So I gave him the letter. And then he, read the letter completely. I read it end to end, folded the letter, tore that letter into minute pieces, and put it back in my pocket. And then looked at the two singers besides me, and he said, अच्छा है, घर जाने का मौका मिल रहा है, ये राउडीज को भी लेके जाओ, मस्ती करो, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Then I was like, I was so serious here, and then he was making a joke of this whole thing. I said, how do I communicate to him that this is not possible? I can't do that. Then someone said that, if you go to Swami's residence after Bhajans, after the Aarti is over, and if you request for a letter to be sent, it can only be sent if Swami says yes to your letter. I thought, okay, if that happens, probably Swami will read my letter because he's saying yes to a letter. So I went there, I gave a letter there also. It was taken in, but nothing was coming out of it. Days passed by, the warden called me and said, you have to take a decision now. We can't wait any longer. You have to now exit. I said, okay, one final time I will make an attempt, and then I'll do what needs to be done. So it was this afternoon, Swami was coming for darshan. I got up. He said, don't. He took a group for interviews. I was sitting in the first row in the portico. And after the interviews were over, he came straight to me and said, what is your problem? I said, Swami, it's not that I wrote an exam and I failed. It's not that. He said, I didn't write the exam. I was not well. So Sudhir Bhaskar sir was also there. He also tried to sort of support me and said, Swami, acha bol raha hai. Swami snapped back at him. Said, you keep quiet. This is between him and me. I'm trying to understand the situation. After he understood, he called the vice chancellor. And he said, this boy has a problem. Do you know what his problem is? The vice chancellor says, Swami, yes, in university rules, we have to follow rules. He has not written 3 exams, so he cannot continue. No, but he did not write and fail. No, he did not write the exams. He didn't participate. So you have to look at it differently. No, Swami, that is rules. We can't bend the rules. So it went back and forth, Swami and him. Swami saying, no, dekh lo, have a bit of, understand his situation. He is like, no, Swami, these are rules. You cannot do anything about it. Finally, Swami gave up and said, you go to his office tomorrow and try and explain what your case is and see if they can agree to it. So off I go. I'm a student. I'm just about 23, 25 years of age. Off I go to the administrative block, and I'm ushered into one long, big conference room, and I have the vice chancellor in the center. I have the registrar on one side. I have the controller of exams on the other side, and I'm all alone. I have to now plead my case to them, and they are like very clear saying, boy, this is the rules of the university. We cannot do anything. You will discontinue and you will come back and study after maybe 6 months or 1 year. We cannot do anything. For half an hour, I pleaded my case. My only point was, Swami said that there is a way you can find a solution. And that's why I'm here. He sent me So I am pleading on your behalf. And after half an hour, I do not know why, but they agreed. They agreed for me to continue. And I came back, and I was in the mandir when Swami came by. And he said, "Kya hua?" As if he does not know. I said, "Swami, they were agreed to for me to continue." He said, "See, I have broken the rules of the institution for you. Now you got to justify and study well." Just a week from there, our semester exams were starting. And for 7 days, every day he would find me out in the crowd and call me and say, "Aaj kaun sa exam tha? Kaisa kiya? Kitne questions answer kiye? Kitna छोड़ा?" One day it was some course. मुझे लगता है तुमने अच्छा नहीं किया. मुझे पता है तुमने 2-3 questions तो लिखा ही नहीं. That was the level of, imagine, he's got so many things happening at that point in time. But to find me out every single day and to understand how I'm doing in the exam, so much of granularity, only Swami can do it. And then he said, for the fun element, he said, if you don't pass through, I'm going to cut your nose and ears. Then he said, I read a news item that in Hyderabad, police people have, cut the hands and chopped hands, feet of some miscreants and put them in a well. So I'm also going to cut your nose and ears, and I'll make you like Surpanakha, and I'll drop you in the Chitravati if you don't study well. So and just a emotional part about this. The day I came back to tell him that I've been allowed to study, I then in the Bhajans started, and I happened to be in the portico, and through the portico at a diagonal way I could actually see Swami. Swami is like looking this way into the Bhajan hall, but I'm sitting out in the portico where the speakers are, but I could see him. But generally when he's in the Bhajan mandir, he only looks straight in the mandir, and Bhajan was going on. Third or fourth bhajan, one singer started this bhajan, Partishwari Jagat Janani, And my mind raced to that line, Karuna Sadani, Karuna Mahima. And I was like, oh, this line is so apt about what happened to me, It's because of Swami's mercy that I'm able to continue. I don't have to face that embarrassment, right? So the merciful one, right? Immediately my mind raced to that line. And just as the singer came to that line, just as he was starting that line, Swami, who doesn't look left, right, turned straight and looked into my eyes just to say, yes, that is true, and that is what I am. So, I think if the yearning is there, I would say Bhagwan goes to any lengths to sort of satisfy his devotee, support his devotee, cajole, whatever, you can call it. Moving on. I finished my MBA in 1995, and I was waiting for about 3-4 months to sort of get a instruction from Swami as to what I should do. Should I stay? Should I be of service to Swami in Puttaparthi? Should I go out? And for 2-3 months, I did not exist for him in Parthi. He didn't look at me. He didn't even notice my presence. Guru Purnima was just around the corner, and one fine day, a week before, he comes into the Bhajan hall and he looks at me and he said, "Kya kar raha hai? Why are you still here?" And before I could answer, he says, "Acha, ye Guru Purnima ke liye baithe ho for that festival? Haan, uske baad chale jana." And I'm like, "No," I said, no, Swami, that's not the case. I want to be of service to you. Can I stay here and serve you? So he was very emphatic. No, nothing doing. You go from here. You find a job. You have no role to play here. So, if he says that with that so much of finality, I said, okay, maybe that's what Swami wants for me. And I realized that, there were some industrialists who were looking at Sai students as management trainees for their organizations, and some interviews were going on. I came to know of that, so I also attended that interview. And I got through, and I got the offer. So after a few days, Swami was like, "What happened? I told you to search for a job." And I'm like, "Swami, I got a job." So, "Really? You got a job?" So this was in the portico area. So he said, "Very good, very good." Then there was a gentleman just beside him, and he said, he's got a job now with a company and all. I'm so happy. I've told him that, don't look at salary and all of that. Experience is important. You need to sort of be a very good worker, a good professional. And the gentleman sheepishly tells Swami, he is joining me. So Swami is like, Acha. Then he says, okay, I'll meet both of you tomorrow. So all this while Swami is like, oh, very good, you go and all of that. Tomorrow he calls us for an interview, both of us. And in the interview, Swami is like, this boy is a very bad boy. You cannot trust him. He's not loyal at all. He's leaving me and going. And I'm getting confused now. What is the conversation? He's like, I've done so much for him and he wants to run away from this place. He's a very bad boy. So I'm very confusing. I'm here for 3-4 months. You've not looked at me, and you said I should go out. I go out, I search for a job. Now you're saying I am a very bad boy. So I was having a big challenge as to how do I understand what's happening here. For a while I thought I should go back and tell this gentleman, I don't need your job. I'll stay here, maybe look at instructions from Swami, what he has to tell me. So I thought, before I could tell this gentleman, again Swami catches me in the mandir one fine day and says, Kab ja rahe ho? 26 ko ja rahe ho? Before I could say yes, no, he's like, I'll meet you before you go. So again, that was positive saying, okay, you go. I said, okay, maybe now I have to go. So he said, I will meet you before you go. And he recollected that there is this student among hundreds of students who is going on the 26th, and I have to meet him before that. Just giving you a way of how, even as a normal being, he is able to get everything organized so much. So 2 or 3 days before I leave, he calls me for an interview with devotees. There is a Russian group and some more devotees. And I know, they've come from far, they probably it's their only interview that they've got. So I sit by the door. The room is packed. Swami talks to them, all of them. And then Swami materializes a ring in front of them. So, and we've seen rings, so it was this rings with the 9 gems, a Navratna ring. He materializes it, and since it's a foreign audience, he's asking them, do you know what is this? Do you know what is this? And in my mind, I do not know for what reason, I'm like, Swami, I don't need this ring. In my mind, I'm like, I don't need this ring. Generally, those rings are worn by VIPs in the portico. I'm not in that league, so I don't need this ring. Don't give it to me. If you're thinking of giving it to me, I already had a ring that he had given me, so I don't need anything. I'm happy enough. And oddly so, he tells me, do you know what this ring is? To me, right at the door. And I said, yes, Swami, it is the Navratna ring. Ah, yes, Navratna ring. And then he tells the foreign delegates, he does not want it. He does not want it. So he just blows it off. He takes a Russian group for a personal interview, and they have a lot of discussion. I do not know in what language they have, They are laughing, they are chatting, they come back. He takes me in a personal interview. We come back. Then he calls me and makes me sit right at his feet. And then he says, do you want a Navratna ring or do you want a Sai Baba ring? So it's a tough question to answer. So I'm like, Swami, whatever you please. No, you have to choose. Do you want a Navratna ring or you want a Sai Baba ring? He goes back and forth, and I'm like, how can I choose? Because both are your creations and both are you. So I said, Swami, whatever you please, because both are you. So ultimately then he materializes a ring which has got his face embossed on it, and then he sort of gives it to me. And by the time all of this is happening, the Bhajans have started. And he says, oh, quickly, Bhajans have started, so all of you quickly go. So by the time I come out, there is no place in the Bhajan hall to go, but just by the door of the portico and the Bhajan, I sort of cramp myself there. And then Swami comes, sits on his chair. Bhajans are in full swing. And just after about 5 minutes, he suddenly gets off the chair. Bhajans are still going on, goes inside the interview room, comes out, and then asks me to get up while the bhajans are still on. And it's very embarrassing for these things to happen when bhajan is on. I say, why is he calling me? So as I go to him, he just gets my shoulder very close and slowly slips in two 500 rupees notes into my pocket and tells me, this is your airfare to Indore. I'm sure you don't have the money to go, And some Vibhuti packets also he pushes in and says, now you do well. And that's how he sort of allowed me to leave Puttaparthi. And I was always indebted to him for what he did to me, my brother, my family. So I felt once I went and joined this company, I was getting a stipend of, I think, 5,000 rupees. So I felt I should do something for Swami, for all that he did for me. So the first salary or the stipend that I got, I said, I will give it back to Swami. So I made a draft. I didn't even know whom to address, so see Sathya Sai Baba, trust. Then I wrote a long letter, stating that, all that you've done for me and gratitude and all of this. And I sent it as a registered AD to Swami. A month later, I get a call from the MD's office. His EA saying that the MD wants to meet you. You please come. And I was a little worried that something that I did wrong at the work that the MD's called me. So the MD's I met the MD and he says, did you send Swami a letter? So I had forgotten about it. A month back, I said, yeah, I had sent a letter. He says, when he had gone to Parthi, and Swami had sort of was speaking to Swami, brought the letter, brought the draft, and he said, this Darjeeling boy has now sent me his salary, and this is the draft he sent me. I was amazed that, there are thousands and thousands of letters that come to Swami, right? For him to read through all of these, to identify from whom it has come. I'm talking at a very, very, at a human level. And then to tell my MD that, this is what he has done. It was an amazing experience for me. And every time I went back, I'm not a very frequent visitor to Parthi, but every time I went back, it was almost like he recognized me. And I do not know why. So I went in 2001 after a big gap. And he said, Indore, isn't it? And by then I had actually gone to Delhi. I said, no, Swami, I'm in Delhi. The next time I went, maybe 2-3 years back, later, he says, are you married now? I said, yes, I'm married. After a few years I go, he said, how many children do you have? And in 2011, when he came to Delhi, Swami was very, very frail. He was very weak at that point in time in a wheelchair. So we wanted, we were doing seva as alumni. And on that last day, we somehow wanted to be in a passage where Swami would go through. Just to maybe, for Swami to see us, nothing more. So 15 of us were lined up. And Swami was being taken through to the lift to go to his room. And I was right at the back by the wall, 15-20 feet away. And then he somehow looked at me and beckoned me, saying, come. And I walk across to him and he says, he was talking to me in Telugu. And I was not understanding what he was trying to say. Luckily, one of the brothers was sitting beside knew Telugu. So Swami was like, what do you do now? So I'm like, how do I answer that? So I said the most logical thing, Swami, I'm in service. As in, my occupation is service. He said, what exactly do you do in service? It's like, okay, I provide jobs to people. He thought for a while and then they said, okay, take Pad Namaskar. Point is, individual, at every individual level, Swami had this way of making every individual so comfortable, recognizing him time and again. There are thousands of students that pass through the portals of the institution there, but to again understand, keep in mind, oh, you're in Indore, now you've gone to Delhi, you're married, you got children. It was an amazing experience that Swami has left in my heart. I'm mindful of time, so I'll probably just come to an end. So I think it's about rediscovering Swami. I was there in 2011 when Swami attained Mahasamadhi, and I was there for those 2 days. And in day 2, when Swami's mortal remains were lowered in the portico, and then everyone was allowed to have darshan one final time. After a while, this whole hall emptied, and I was just sitting in one of the benches. The hall was empty. And at that point in time, it felt so lonely, so hollow. For a while, I thought, I'm never going to come back to this place again, I could not think of a Parthi without the physical form of Swami. And for about 5 years, I never went. Because I couldn't bring myself to go to a party where Swami isn't there, because we were so used to seeing him in physical form, talking to him, connecting with him. But slowly I reconciled, and party is a different party now, but the essence is there. I think, those days of looking out for him is over. I think it's about looking in and finding him within us. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I think I feel that, he's given us the fill that we wanted. He's given us enough, right? And it's time for us to sort of give back in whatever way possible. So I have joined the Sai organization in Delhi. I'm a Samiti convener for one of their units there. And most of my time over weekends, I actually spend a lot of time, either it is conducting medical camps or organizing Naran Sevas or blanket distributions or Jeva, this Jal Sevas. I'm involved. I'm as a part of this singer at the center. I'm giving back what I've got for so much from Swami. In conclusion, the first time Swami spoke to me in 1990, when the summer course was happening, I think the question he asked me was, where have you come from? And at that point in time, very eagerly, I had said, I have come from Darjeeling. And after about 5 wonderful years with him, I was leaving Parthi. And in 1995 of June, he asks me another question, where are you going? And I promptly replied to him that I'm going to Indore, right? Years later, now, a little more mature, a little more white hair, going through my diary and reminiscing all the experiences, I'm reminded of these 2 very important questions that I think he has posed for all of us. Is where have we come from and where are we going? And, do I know the answer? Certainly I do not know. I am working in finding an answer to that. And just not me, I think all of us probably need to find answer to these 2 very, very important questions. And this brings me to the end. Thank you, brothers, from the Samarpan team for inviting me for this talk. Siddharth and Anush for giving me this opportunity, for sharing my experiences today. Om Sri Sai Ram.